CSS, or cascading style sheets, are the components that provide the visual formatting to a web page. In modern HTML, we try to separate the content, or what the page is, from the presentation, or what the page looks like. CSS is the magic that provides all the formatting to a web page to make the page visually interesting. Let's take a look at where CSS is applied in Adobe Dreamweaver CS6. I'm beginning this video with the index.html file open in my Chapter 4 folder. And just as a reminder, you want to make sure that you've redefined the Chapter 4 folder as your current site folder. And real quickly, to do that, you click on the drop-down menu and choose Manage Sites, click on the New Site button, and define Chapter 4 as your site folder. So I'm going to click Done. And what I want to make sure that we do is open up our CSS Styles panel. Now, my panel is already open, and yours should be too, but if for some reason it's not, simply go to your window menu and choose CSS Styles. Now, CSS Styles are basically the components that provide the formatting for your web page. Now, this is kind of a preview of what our main home page is going to look like. And we're going to be adding our own CSS to this page to make it look exactly like you see here. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that in the CSS Styles panel, you can see all the styles that are currently being applied. Now, in this particular example, we have an external style sheet, which means that this group of styles, I'll click on the triangle so you can see, this is mainly all of our navigation for the web page. This group of styles is basically an external file. And we can see that if we look at our sites folder, you'll see a file down here called jummy_styles.css. And that's also reflected right up here. And if I open this up, we can see that within there are all of the CSS rules. And these are basically the rules that define different components of our web page. And you can see that all of these are related to the navigational component right here. Now, in addition to having an external style sheet, which is an external file, you can also have an internal style sheet. And internal or embedded styles are specific to this particular web page. So if I go to the code view just for a moment, you'll be able to see this in more detail. So at the very top here, you can see that I have a link to that external CSS file. And that's providing several of those CSS rules that we had defined. But in addition, I have these internal rules or selectors that are being defined as well. And those are internal or specific to this particular web page. Now, if I switch over to the design view, one of the other things I want to point out with your CSS rules up here is that if you click on one of these, down here right below is the properties area. And you can always rearrange this. Yours might be real tiny like this and you may not see it at first. But if I click on it and open it up, you'll be able to see that when I click on one of these rules, it shows me all the properties for that rule. So you can see that these are all the different properties that are being applied by this rule. Now, in addition, down here, you can see that it's currently showing only the set properties. You can also click on the list view, which is going to show us a complete list of all the properties that we could possibly apply. And then we can click on this first button, which is Show Category View. And this, again, is showing us properties for the different categories available. These are Microsoft-based categories, extensions, and you can see all of these different categories that I can use to add properties to the selected rule. Now I'm going to switch back to the set properties, and that's going to show me all the properties of the rule that I have selected. And in addition, currently we're looking at the all category. We can click on the current category, and that shows us our information in a little bit different way, because for the current rule, it's showing us all of these properties. This is helpful when you're trying to figure out which rule is applied, and it's also helpful for diagnosing problems when you're working with CSS as well. So I'm going to switch back to the all category. And what I also would like to do is demonstrate to you how you can see the effects of CSS on your document. Because at the most basic level, the code, for the most part, has not really changed. If you've been following along up to this point, you'll notice that the code we've been using from body down to the closing body element is essentially the same. The only thing that has changed is the CSS we've applied. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to switch to design view. And if I come up here to my insert bar, I'm just going to right click, and you can see that I have a category called style rendering. So I'm going to choose that option, and that's going to show a whole new category up here for me to work with. Now, you'll see this button here allows me to toggle the displaying of the CSS styles in my document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that button to turn off the CSS. And lo and behold, you can see that our web page is essentially the same as what it's been up to this point. And if we click on this button again, that's going to turn the CSS on, and you can see the difference that CSS makes on our web page. That's the really amazing thing about CSS and how it works in HTML. We can turn this on and off to help see what the content of the web page was, but in addition, you can apply all these different rules to change the overall appearance of your web page. Now that you have a better understanding of what CSS is and what it can do to the visual aspects of a web page, you can start applying your own CSS to a web page to see how the formatting affects the look of the overall page.